Hey guys, PlonkerBoy900 here with the next installment in the AlteRed monotype series. You guys really enjoyed the last few videos on this game. Honestly, thank you all so much for the support. It was only logical that I continued this series, and what better way to continue it than with the next set of starter Pokemon. I put out a poll asking which type you'd like to see first, and the Ice type won by a huge majority. So, today we find out, can you beat Pokemon AlteRed using only Ice types? I don't really need to go through the rules at this point, it's pretty self-explanatory. I can only use Ice types in battle, HM users are allowed outside of battle if I need them, and no items are allowed in battle apart from Pokeballs. As always, before we get started, shout out goes to these people who found the dabbing delibird in the last video. He's in this one too, so just comment down below with the timestamp if you see him, and you might get featured in the next one. With all that said, let's get on with it. I start the game and pick the male character, calling him Naegi. You know the drill by now, comment down below if you get the reference. I name our rival Zwigo because he's an absolute legend and he's paying me to say that. I decide to pick Fertile so that Zwigo will have a fire type starter, which will be the hardest for our ice types to beat. After beating him in an easy fight, I catch my first Pokemon, Snowtotile. It's a pure ice type and has the ability Guts. It's worth mentioning that Totodile is one of my favourite Pokemon of all time, so I am really happy that I get to use one. I also really like this design. We are weak to rock types, so Brock did take a couple of attempts, but it wasn't really that much of an issue. Crush strikes up first and takes huge damage from an Ice Shard, as he hits back with the Rock Tomb, which doesn't really do that much. He does heal up with a potion, but 2 more Ice Shards are all we need for the KO, and Moss Eater's up next. Once again though, 2 Ice Shards are all we need, and it's the same story for Carbolt. We do get hit by a Spark, but it doesn't do that much, and we're down to his final Pokemon, Isocoon. I lower its defense a couple of times with Leer, and thankfully he misses the Rock Tomb, which means that a Bite is all we need for a KO, and we win ourselves the first badge. On our way to Mount Moon, Snowtotile evolves into Chillnor, and I decide to catch some new team members as well. The first of which is a Friggy. Obviously this is an ice flying type Pidgey, but what you might not expect to hear is that this is actually considered a pseudo legendary in this game, as when it's fully evolved it has massive stats. I also catch a Vaniltank, which is kind of a weird premise, but I'll take it. It's a normal ice type and has the ability Thick Fat. We're not done yet though, I also catch a Cedipal, which is currently just a rock type, but when it evolves it becomes part ice, and to top things off I catch a Stalagmite. This is a pure ice version of Magnemite, and that rounds off the team for now. I evolve Cedipal into Isocoon and then once again into Beauty Stole, and on my way through Mount Moon I pick the Dome Fossil. Nah, just kidding, I go for the Helix Fossil. Still, ask anyway I guess. These two people here normally teach Mega Punch and Mega Kick, but in this game they teach different moves. For some reason, and I have no idea why, Friggy can learn the move Wood Hammer. I really have no idea how this is possible, but it'll help against the next gym for sure. Before that though, we face off against Zwigo once again, but this was an easy fight. Eggon is up first, but Beauty Stole can take it out in 2 Ice Shards, and Venusaur takes huge damage from a Rock Throw. He does go for the Metal Claw, which is 4 times super effective, but we just hang on with 7 health remaining, and finish it off with 1 more Rock Throw. Vaniltank takes care of Stalagmite with 2 Stomps, and his final Pokemon Prakuna just goes down to 1 Ice Fang from Chillnor. That was a pretty easy rival fight. Before facing Misty, I evolve Friggy into Frigioto, and then take her on. She starts off with a Foamwall, so I lead off with Frigioto, and as to be expected, Wood Hammer is a 1-hit KO. Goldtide is up next, but this thing is 4 times weak to grass, so again, a Wood Hammer is an easy 1-hit KO, and next up is Tartler. We're able to do decent damage before we go down to a couple of Aqua Jets, so I swap into Vaniltank and go for the Stomp, which takes it out from there thanks to a lucky critical hit. We're now already down to our final Pokemon, Syrinx, who almost takes out Vaniltank with a critical hit Water Pulse, but we hang on with a sliver of health and get another critical hit. This takes Syrinx out from full and wins us the second badge. Lieutenant Surge is up next, but again this wasn't too difficult of a fight. Elix is up first, so again I start with Frigioto, and 1-hit KO with the super effective Wood Hammer. Moroth is up next, and we get a critical hit Ice Shard for good damage, but unfortunately he has the Volt Tackle, which takes us out from there. He doesn't quite take himself out with the recoil either, and of course he heals the next turn with a Super Potion, but Chillnor's Ice Fang is just too much for it. Blitzus is up next, so I stay in, and we do take massive damage from a Flame Wheel, but we have the super effective Dig, and this thing is electric fire, so actually it's 4 times super effective. He does have the protect, but he doesn't go for it, so we can land our dig, which is of course a one-hit KO. Linode is up next, so I swap into Beauty Style, and go for the Power Gem. We do get outsped and paralysed by a Thunder Wave, but we still hit, and again it's a one-hit KO, and it's just down to his final Pokemon Fearolt. I stay in and take a Shockwave with ease, and I was sure that Power Gem would be a one-hit KO, but he does just hang on. He does use another Super Potion, but we bring it back down to red health with another Power Gem, and then we have the priority Ice Shard to finish it off. These gyms have been pretty easy so far for the Ice type. On our way to the next gym, I catch some more Pokemon. The first of which is a Hoo-Hoo, which is an Ice Flying type Hoothoot. You might think it's weird to have two Ice Flying types on the team, but when this thing evolves it actually becomes part Ghost. I also catch a Nutot, which is a very odd name. It's an ice fighting type version of Seedot, but I'll keep it in the PC for now. I also do some training and evolve some of our team. Chilnor evolves into a Frostigator, which is one of my favourite designs of all time, and Hoo-Hoo evolves into a Sub-Zero. With our newly buffed up team I take on the 4th gym leader Erika, but as you'd expect, this gym was no match for our ice types. Fernomuff is up first and does do some good damage to us with an air cutter, but a combination of Icy Wind and Ice Shard are all we need, and Lattice is up next. I'm able to bring it down to low health before we go down to a couple of shockwaves, so I just send in Stalagmite, and finish it off with an Icicle Spear. Marshwine is up next, so I swap into Frostigator, and we actually get the lucky freeze with the Ice Fang. She does defrost with a full heal though, but I hit a bite the next turn, which brings it down below half. Another bite brings it down to KO range, and we actually get the flinch too. This means that one more bite's all we need, and Corest is up next. I swap in Sub-Zero, and straight away we get a lucky freeze with Powder Snow. One more Powder Snow brings it down to KO range, and from there I can just finish it off with a Gust. We're now just down to a final Pokemon Royal Lotus, but Frostigate is faster, and one Ice Fang is all we need for a one-hit KO, easily winning us the 4th badge. We beat Giovanni and Zwigo with absolute ease, so I'm not even going to include these as always, and on our way to Fuchsia City we actually evolve Stalagmite into Stalacton. I also make an adjustment to the team. Beauty Stell's not really been doing much recently, so I decide to swap it out, and replace it with Nutot. I do some more training and actually evolve Stalacton once again into a Stalacola, which now becomes part Water type, and evolve Nutot not once, but twice. First into Nutmarch, and then into Shell Cuttree. I have no idea how to say that name. We're not done yet though, we also evolve Frigioto into a Frigior. Are you keeping up? That was a lot to take in, but now we're finally ready to take on the 5th gym leader Koga. As always they start off with Mediclops and Noxiora, so I lead off with our 2 frozen burbs. Not you. Frigiot takes out the Noxiora with one single Ice Beam, and Taintuck comes out next, as Sub-Zero hits a Psychic. It doesn't even do half though and he hits back with a knockoff. And next turn Frigiot goes for an Ice Beam on Taintuck, but it doesn't even do half, but we get a lucky freeze. I then go for an Ominous Wind which hits both Pokemon, bringing them both down below half. Mediclops just goes for Spikes though, and before we can take out the Pokemon, Taintuck does defrost and hit a Shadow Sneak, which does okay damage to Sub-Zero. Frigiot can just take it out with another Ice Beam though, and Nefario comes out next, as I hit one more Ominous Wind. I just go for the Ice Beam on Nefario, which does great damage, as he hits back with the Poison Jab, and unfortunately gets the Poison as well. Sub-Zero can just finish off the Mediclops with a Psychic from there, and out comes Playgron. One more Ice Beam takes out Nefario, and he sends out his final new Pokemon, Glimpale. Playgron does hit an Air Cutter which does decent damage to both our Pokemon, but we both hang on, and Sub-Zero hits a decently powerful Aurora Beam, and then next turn Frigiot can just follow up with an Ice Beam for the knockout. Now we just need to deal with this Glimpale, who unfortunately does take out Frigiot with an X-Scissor, so I just send in Vanille Tank, as Sub-Zero hits an Aurora Beam. I go for the Strength with Vanille Tank, which is super effective in this game because it's a rock move, and it brings it down to low health, but unfortunately Sub-Zero gets taken out by a Poison Fang before it can attack, so I just send in Shell Cuttree, and a combination of Fake Out and Strength are all we need to get the win. Not gonna lie, that was probably the easiest Koga fight we've had so far. We need to face Zwigo once again in the Silph Co building, but this wasn't too bad either. He starts off with a Gyarados, so I lead off with Shell Cuttree, so I start off with a Fake Out and we actually get a critical hit, which means we can just follow up with a Brick Break the next turn, which takes it out from there. Talamence is up next, so I stay in, and go for the super effective Ice Punch, which does well over half. Instead of attacking, he just goes for Feather Dance, so one more Ice Punch is all we need, and I swap into Stalacola for his next Pokemon, Chernobyl. We actually outspeed this thing, and one Surf is actually an easy one-hit KO. For some reason he sends out his starter Volcasaur next, and he just goes for the Iron Defense. Not really sure why he did that. In return, Silph does huge damage, and we can easily take the Flamethrower the next turn and finish it off with one more. Having a water type on the team is really useful. His final Pokemon is Stalacton, so I go back into Shell Cuttery, and just do the tried and tested formula. Fake Out plus Brick Break equals win. I'm not even going to talk about this Giovanni fight, as once again it was really easy. Even him transforming into my own Pokemon wasn't going to save him from losing. Instead, let's move on to the 6th gym leader, Sabrina. She starts off with a Cloystar, so I lead off with Sub-Zero, and just go for the Ominous Wind, which almost takes it out from full health. She goes for Reflect and then heals up with a Citrus Berry, but that's fine as Ominous Wind is a special move, so it takes it out from there. Zenchamp is up next, so I decide to stay in, and go for one more Ominous Wind. It doesn't even do half though, and she starts setting up with a Bulk Up. I've actually ran out of Ominous Wind PP, so I go for Aurora Beam this time for decent damage, as she goes for the Zen Headbutt and almost takes us out with a critical hit. I thought she was going to heal here, but she doesn't, but she does actually just hang on from the Aurora Beam, and takes us out with the Jarring Jabs, which is a multi-hit ghost move. I send in Frigiot though as she fully heals with a Hyper Potion, and just go for the super effective Air Slash for an easy one-hit KO. Sparkle's up next, but this thing is also a one-hit KO with Frostigator's Icicle Crash. Houndunami's up next, so I decide just to stay in, and go for the super effective Bite, which again is an easy one-hit KO. Stornova's up next, so this thing was a little bit more of a problem to deal with. Stalacoda's Surf does hardly any damage, and in return, her Power Gem does a decent amount. She has the leftovers as well, so this thing is really bulky, and it has Reflect and Light Screen as well. We're able to bring it down to about half its health before we go down, so I send in Frostigator and go for the Brick Break, which not only gets rid of the Light Screen, but does some decent damage as well. She sets up another one though, and then fully heals with a Hyper Potion, so I just keep going for the Brick Break. Eventually we take it out without even taking damage, and we're down to our final Pokemon Doris. I swap in Vaniltank and go for the Strength, which brings it down to red health, and instead of attacking she just goes for Calm Mind. This just means we can outspeed and take it out with one more, winning us badge number 6. As you might imagine, Blaine's gym was just not going to be happening. Most of my Pokemon are weak to fire, so I had to come up with a strategy, and it's very similar to ones I've used in the past. I teach the move Rain Dance to Stalacola, and this is going to be vital if we want to win. He starts off with an Explobat, which immediately sets up the Sun with Drought, so as he sets up a double team, I just go for the Rain Dance. Not only does this make our water type move stronger, but it also makes his fire types weaker. He goes for another double team, but thankfully we're able to hit the Surf, and thankfully it is a one-hit KO. Floritia is up next, so I decide to swap into Vaniltank. He actually sets up the Sunny Day though, which gets rid of our rain, and Strength doesn't even do half. I go for another Strength as he hits a Flamethrower, but thanks to our ability Thick Fat, we actually survive with health to spare. One more Strength brings it down to red health, and I know he's going to heal here, so I need to go for a risky strategy. I go for Dynamic Punch, but unfortunately we miss, and I was sure we were going to go down to one more Flamethrower, but we somehow live with just 1 HP remaining. Not only that, we hit the Dynamic Punch this turn, we get the Confusion, and the next turn he hits himself as well, and our second Dynamic Punch also hits. That was pretty close. Next up is Stump Play, so I swap into Frigiot, and this thing's part grass, so we just outspeed and KO with the super effective Air Slash. Samurant is up next and is also weak to flying, so yet again, 1 Air Slash is all we need. And next up is Sutillery, so I swap back into Stalacola, and set up the Rain Dance once again. He goes for the Overheat, but thanks to the rain it hardly does anything, and next turn I can just outspeed and KO with a single Surf. We're now just down to his final Pokemon Necromantic, so I stay in. Once again I go for the super effective Surf, and he digs his own grave by going for the move Submission.
Oh look! An idiot!
This does take us out, but it does recoil damage, and that was his last Pokemon. He knocks himself out, so we win. As always, the 8th gym leader is Giovanni, but ground types aren't really a problem for my ice types. He starts off with Med-Earth and Cragler, so I lead off with Shell Cuttery and Stalacola, and go for the Fake Out on the Cragler, as Med-Earth hits a Hurricane which does good damage to Shell Cuttery, and a small amount to Stalacola as well. I set up the rain and then just take out the Med-Earth with a single Ice Punch the next turn, and out comes Kanaroa, only to get absolutely destroyed by a Surf. He does survive the hit, but he's in bad shape, but the same can't be said for Cragler, who gets instantly destroyed. Excali comes out next, and does outspeed and finish off Shell Cuttery with a Play Rough, so I send in Frigiot. Kadaroa does unfortunately hit a Thunder Punch as well, which finishes off Stalacola, so I send in Frostigator. Frigidot's Ice Beam is an easy one-hit KO on the Excali, and next up is Drilldrio. Frostigator then finishes off the Kadaroa with an Icicle Crash, and we're now down to his final new Pokemon, Severm. I go for the Ice Beam on the Drilldrio, which brings it down to low health, as for some reason he just goes for Curse. I then go for an Icicle Crash, but unfortunately we miss, as Severm goes for a Leech Life for decent damage. One more Ice Beam takes out the Drilldrio thanks to an unnecessary crit, and now we just have to face this Severm. I go for the Icicle Crash once again and we don't miss this turn, and it is an easy one-hit KO, winning us the 8th and final gym badge. Before we can take on the Elite Four though, there is one more fight with Zwigo, who starts off with a Talament, so I lead off with Shell Cutlery. As always I go for Fake Out and then Ice Punch, which brings it down below half, as he goes for Brave Bird. Somehow, and I don't know how, we survived this hit with 3 health remaining, and he does a lot of damage to himself as well. He does fully heal, but we're able to hit 2 more Ice Punches, which unfortunately don't quite take it out, but leave him on a sliver of health, as he just takes us out with a Steel Wing. Vanilletank's able to just outspeed and finish it off though, and next up is Sense Leash. This thing is part dragon, so I stay in, and I go for an Icicle Spear, which unfortunately only hits twice, as he hits back with a super effective Meteor Mash, and gets a crit as well. We still survive though, and we're able to hit one more Icicle Spear, and we just get the required amount that we need, and it goes down. Bristrol's up next, so I swap into Stalacola, but unfortunately we get outsped and hit by a Stone Edge, which we just can't survive, so I send in Frostigator. He probably could have taken us out with another Stone Edge, but he just goes for a Swords Dance. But this thing's Rock and Poison, so Earthquake is 4 times super effective, and an easy one-hit KO. Next up is Volcasaur, so I just stay in and go for another Earthquake, and it does well over half as well. This means that his Eruption is now nowhere near as powerful as it would have been, so we take the hit, and finish it off with one more Earthquake. His own Stalacola is up next, so I swap into Vanilltank and go for the super effective Strength, but it does just under half, and we get taken out by a Muddy Water. I switch in Frostigator once again, and just finish it off with a Brick Break, and now we're down to his final Pokemon, Scariados. Frigidot is faster and just has the super effective Ice Beam, so needless to say it goes down in one hit, and we beat Zwigo once again. Now we've arrived at the Pokemon League, let's take a look at our final team. Honestly, I'm really happy with how this team turned out. Frostigator and Frigidot are definitely the best Pokemon on the team, but to be honest, everyone has their own use. The only Pokemon I'd say is lacking is probably Sub-Zero, but even that isn't too bad. Will this team be able to beat the Elite Four though? Well, let's find out. You've heard of fighting fire with fire, well this is fighting ice with ice. As always she starts off with Torchill and Eruptice, so I lead off with Vanilltank and Frigidot. I go for the Air Slash on the Torchill, which does great damage, and then follow up with an Earthquake, which doesn't quite take out the Torchill, and obviously doesn't hit Frigidot, but it's super effective against Eruptice, so it does decent damage. She just goes for a Cosmic Power though, and then Torchill hits a Weather Ball, but there's no weather, so it's really weak. She obviously heals up the next turn, but I hit one more Air Slash to bring it down to low health, and then Vanilltank can go for a Strength, which is 4 times super effective, but still not quite enough. Eruptice then goes for a Heat Wave, which hits both Pokemon, but to be honest doesn't do that much to either. She then decides to switch out Torchill, and go into Freeze Orb, which was actually kind of a smart play. Air Slash isn't very effective, so it doesn't do much damage at all, but Vanilltank can then hit an Earthquake, which brings it down to low health, and is just enough to take out the Eruptice from there. Golacia comes out next, so I hit an Air Slash to bring it down to about half, and then Vanilltank can go for an Earthquake which finishes off the Freeze Orb, and does a small amount to Golacia as well. She sends out Blizz Maiden next as Golacia goes for a Rollout, which is 4 times super effective against Frigidot, but we take the hit, and finish off the Golacia with one more Air Slash, as Cool Catty comes out next. Vanilltank hits a Strength which almost takes out the Blizz Maiden from full health, as she hits back with a Blizzard, but again it hardly does any damage to Vanilltank, and just completely misses Frigidot. One Ice Beam finishes off the Blizz Maiden, and Torchill comes back out again. I then just hit one more Earthquake, but once again it doesn't quite take out the Torchill, but does some good damage to Cool Catty. She does go for a Smart Strike though, but somehow Vanilltank survives the hit, and next turn she fully heals Torchill, and takes out Vanilltank with an Accelerock. I switch in Stalacola, as Frigidot hits yet another Air Slash, and we can outspeed the next turn and finish it off with one more, and now it's just 2 on 1. Cool Catty does go for an Accelerock though, which unfortunately finishes off Frigidot, so I just send in Sub-Zero, as Stalacola goes for a Surf which finishes it off from there. We're now officially a better Ice-type trainer than Lorelei. For once, Bruno was actually really tough. His fighting types are super effective against our ice types. Nah, I'm just kidding, we just completely swept his team with Frigiot. Agatha was a little bit more challenging, but only just. She starts off with a Zotum, so I lead off a Stalicola, and I know this thing likes to set up the spikes, so I go for the Calm Mind. She does do just that, but next turn she does hit us with a Power Gem, but we take the hit with ease, and this thing's part rock, so one surf is an easy KO. Claypool's up next, and this is a water type, so I can't really use water or ice moves, so I go for the Dazzling Gleam. We do get paralysed by a glare, and our move really doesn't do that much, but she goes for the Hex the next turn and actually heals our paralysis. I'm able to bring it down below half with another Dazzling Gleam, as I thought we were going to get taken out by a Focus Blast, but thanks to our buff special defense, we actually survive with 10 health remaining. This means I can bring it down to red health with one more Dazzling Gleam, but of course she does fully heal the next turn. I'm able to hit one more before we go down, so I send in Sub-Zero and do some good damage with an Ominous Wind. She hits back with a Hex, but we take the hit no problem, and one more Ominous Wind is all we need for the KO. Her next Pokemon is Pellistorm, so I swap into Frostigator, and we have the super effective Earthquake, which again is just an easy one-hit KO. Speaking of super effective Earthquake, Hypnoplasm's up next, but this thing does actually survive. She actually misses the Hypnosis though, so we can just take it out with one more, and Snorcest is up next. I go for another Earthquake, but it really doesn't do that much, as for some reason she goes for Ice Punch. Not really sure why she did that, but I hit an Icicle Crash the next turn, which not only does great damage, but we get the flinch. I've been getting some great luck this fight, or at least I was until I missed the next Icicle Crash. She then goes for Rest to fully heal, and she has a Chesto Berry as well. It's not a problem though, as we're able to take it out eventually, and now we're just down to our final Pokemon, Nobodinja. I stay in and just go for another Icicle Crash, which again does great damage, and we get another flinch. Even with her healing with a Mego Berry, this is not going to save her from one more, so it just goes down and we beat Agatha. Just one more of the Elite Four left to go. Lance is normally quite the challenge, but we have Ice types and he uses Dragon types. Because of this fight wasn't actually that bad at all. He starts off with Drakeperia and Flarados, so I start with Frigiot and Sub-Zero and just go for the Blizzard. It's enough to take out the Drakeperia from full health, and does a huge amount of damage to the Flarados as well. Forest Star comes out next, as Flarados goes for the Overheat, which unfortunately Sub-Zero can't survive. I send in Vaniltank though, and of course he does heal up with the full restore, but Frigiot goes for another Blizzard, which easily takes out the Forest Star as it's 4 times weak to ice, and brings Flarados back down to the red. Thundurus comes out now, as Vaniltank goes for an Earthquake. Again, this doesn't affect Frigiot, and is super effective against both of his Pokemon. It does decent damage to Thundurus, and takes out the Flarados from there. He sends out Leviatops next, as Thundurus goes for Protect, which means that Blizzard doesn't hit it, but we do still hit Leviatops and take it out from full health thanks to a critical hit. Next out is Yveldo, as Vaniltank goes for an Earthquake, but this was completely pointless as it doesn't do anything to anyone. I go for another Blizzard next turn, which does great damage to Thundurus, leaving it on the tiniest amount of health, and takes out the Yveldo from full as it's 4 times super effective. Vaniltank can then just go for the Icicle Spear to finish it off, and we beat Lance. See, what I tell you, that really was the easiest Lance fight ever. All that stands between us and victory now is the champion Zwigo, who starts off with a Dust Sharp. I start with Shell Cutlery and go for the Fake Out, which obviously doesn't do any damage whatsoever, but we can just follow up with a Brick Break, which is 4 times super effective and an easy one-shot. Scariados is up next, so I stay in, and go for another Brick Break, which does well over half. He does hit back with a Leaf Blade, but we take the hit with ease, and just go for one more Brick Break to finish that thing off as well. Talamitz is up next, so I stay in and go for the Ice Punch, which does do just under half, as he hits back with a Brave Bird, which there's just no way we're surviving. I switch in Frostigator and just finish it off with an Icicle Crash, and Eldraine is up next. Again, this thing is weak to ice, so I stay in and go for another Icicle Crash, which does well over half, and we get a lucky flinch as well. This thing is normally quite difficult to deal with, but not when you've got ice types, I guess. One more takes it out, and next up is his starter Volcasaur. I switch in Stalicola and go straight for the Surf, as we actually tank a full power Eruption. Surf hits and does great damage as well, just over half, and next turn he goes for Ancient Power and we somehow live the hit. With just 2 health remaining, we go for one more Surf which knocks it out, and now we're down to his final Pokemon. That being his own Stalicola, so I swap into Vaniltank. I go straight for the super effective Strength for decent damage, as he hits back with a Hydro Pump, which does well over half. I go for one more Strength just to get some more damage in, but no, we actually get a critical hit. It's enough to take it out from there, and just like that we've done it. We beat Zwigo and beat Pokemon AlteRed using only Ice types. I'm sure the reason that most of you picked Ice type was because it's notoriously weak. Well, if anything, this run has proved the exact opposite. Honestly, I think of all the teams I've had so far, this was probably the best. As I said before, there's not really a single bad member, and in particular Frostigator and Frigiot were both amazing team members. If you're playing through this game, I would highly recommend you pick one of those two Pokemon up. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll look forward to the next 2 runs in this series. Next time we'll be taking a look at the Steel type, so stick around if you want to see how well that team does. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please consider leaving a like, as that is really appreciated and it really does help the channel. Also subscribe if you're new. I've got plenty of runs coming in the future, both AlteRed and other games as well. What challenge should I take on next? Give me your suggestions in the comments down below, and if I pick your idea, I'll give you a shout out in the next video. As always, thank you all so much for the continued support. I really do appreciate every single one of you. That's basically it for today, so once again, thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.